today, but the question is going to be, well, why do we need Prisma? What is Prisma? Right? But before that, what did we accomplish yesterday, right? You guys deployed, hopefully, your first back-end application. I know there was a little bit of confusion when you had the link and you plugged it in, right? And there's no website, there's no content, because there's not. We didn't build a website. There's no front end. It was only back end. But the link you guys deployed, you can take, or I can take, and put in Thunder Client and send requests to it, like get requests, put requests, post requests, delete requests, right? So yesterday, we talked about servers. They basically, this giant ear just listening on the internet, right? For all these different clients. You guys sent 1 million requests to my server. And that's what they do. They respond. And remember, one request and one response is the whole story of that cycle, which seems weird that it's not an ongoing connection, but it's not. So we did yesterday, we pretended we were a Twitter backend developer, and we did some routes. So here's our fake database, right? We just had an array of objects. And then to send a request, we use Thunder Client. And we can send a GET request to API/tweets. And it would give us tweets. And that was great, right? So what's the problem with this? What's the problem with creating a database just that's an array of objects floating in our code?
Because when we turn off your computer, so you don't have data anymore.
Yeah, this data is completely just stored in RAM. So it's created when the program's running, and then then just garbage collected. It's thrown away, right? So we lose it. So the whole point with our database is we want to store the info the user submits permanently. So step one today, we're going to create a database at neon.tech. So it should be very easy. I didn't even make you guys sign up as pre-work or anything, because I mean it's just a couple clicks, right? But you sign up and then you log in. And then here in database, you click create new database. And today, what are we working on, right? Spammer. So you would call it Spammer. Click create. And then, that's step one. Your database is created, right? The other steps are, how do we talk to our, how do we communicate to the database? Because the database is living in the cloud on Neon servers, right? But we need to talk to it. So Prisma is going to be our ORM, which allows us to send commands to our database. And does anyone know what ORM is, right? Any ideas here?
It's like object relational mapping.
Yeah. But what does that mean? What does that mean, Farhan? What is that? What is the deep meaning of that?
I'm not sure, but my guess would be that we're creating something to kind of create some sort of relation between the database and the front end and trying to map out that data.
Yeah, that's actually really good. So our database is a SQL database. And what does that mean, right? What does SQL look like? SQL is a structured query language. Let's see if I can show you what it looks like. So here's some SQL. It's a whole nother programming language that we're not going to learn, fortunately, because we're going to use Prisma to take our objects that we make and map them to the SQL. So Prisma will take the objects we make and map them to SQL commands. Yeah, so it will do all the raw SQL for us. We just have to use Prisma, basically. And it's beautiful because SQL is cool, but it's hard. It's a whole nother language, right? But Prisma will feel like you're just using a JavaScript object in different methods. So it's way easier. Okay, so today's objective is to get rid of this fake database, right? And install Prisma. So for step 2 here, we have to copy the info from Neon into our project. And what does that look like? So the connection string here, you're going to find Prisma. And you're going to copy this data source DB. But now I'm realizing we have a step before this step. So in the code to use Prisma, we have to run npx init Prisma. So we run npx init, or sorry, is this Prisma init? Yeah. Yeah, there we go. npx, sorry about that. Prisma init. And this will create us a folder called Prisma. And then we have something called schema.prisma. And now, so step 3, copy the info from Neon. So we go to Neon and we see this data source DB. So this is how they want us to describe the data source. So we copy this and replace this one. Press save. And then for our environment variables we need, I'm going to unhide them. Copy these. Find my .env file. And paste them here. I guess in preparation for lecture, I guess that was old stuff that I didn't delete. Okay. Now let's go back to this Prisma schema. So the whole idea with Prisma is we have to describe what our database is going to look like. So create the Prisma models. We have to describe the type of data we expect our database to have. And the structure of this is you have to describe each table. We're going to use the language of SQL now, one at a time. So what's one thing our Twitter database is going to have? What's one type of data or type of table we're going to need in our Prisma schema, do we think?
An ID?
So an ID is going to be a property of a table.
Users.
Yeah, users will be one for sure. But what did we do yesterday?
Posts.
Well, we called them tweets, right? So we'll use the same language, but posts would work. So what we do here is we use the keyword model, and then we name it whatever we want, like tweet, and then we use curly braces. And now we have to describe, basically what you can think of, we have to describe the eventual object that a tweet is going to have and all the properties. But in the language of SQL, this would be like a table and fields. And the first property an object always has, and just like a table is going to have, is the ID, right? And here, the data type of the ID is actually going to be a string, although you can use a number too. So the first variable is the property name. That's just under our control. And then the second is the data type. And then the third is optional. We're going to do a decorator here called @ID. So this lets Prisma know that this is that this is what's called our primary key for this table. And then we're going to do a default value, and we're going to call the library UUID to create us a universally unique identification, right? So
Do you need to install the npm for UUID, or can you just use it without installing it?
You can actually use it without installing it. I don't know if it's already installed because of a dependency from one of these, but yeah, you don't need to install it separately. So what other properties is a tweet gonna have? What was the one other property we had on our tweets yesterday? What's that?
Message.
Yeah. So let me challenge you guys to try to create this field for message. So Maureen, how do you think at Online 16, how can I describe to Prisma this message field?
A message.
Yeah, so the first is the name, and then the second is the data type.
And the string.
Yeah, so the type is string, exactly. And then we have decorators, like we could decide if this should be unique. But what do you guys think? Should tweets be unique? What do you think, Lin J? Should tweets be unique?
No.
Yeah, no. Okay, so now we've written this code, but we've done no communication with Neon here, where our database actually lives. So the command to migrate our database to Neon is, whoops. Let me move this over. npx prisma migrate dev, right? So we want to send really the model, the description of the model tweet to Neon. So we do that with npx prisma migrate dev. So basically, anytime you change the schema file, you need to migrate those changes to Neon. It's not like an automatic connection. Any questions while this is spinning up?
Max, I have a question. On line 15, you said ID, and then you have UUID. They're the same, right? You're just generating a unique ID. They're not two separate IDs.
No, the first one is a decorator that tells Prisma that this line should be treated as the ID. It's not smart enough to know that it's the ID just based on the ID. So when it needs to do things like look things up or have relationships with other tables, really, it uses the ID as the ID. Maybe it should have been designed where it just automatically knows it's the ID from the label ID, but it wasn't, right? So you have to specifically tell Prisma that this is the ID. This second one is, we're basically saying go ahead and use the library UUID to generate unique IDs. There's other options available here. I forget. There's one where it's like auto increment. Here's a CUID, an alternative to UUID. So there's other ones you can do. But UUID, remember, will generate us the unique IDs. Oh, is there a UUID website? Yeah. So it generates something that looks like this, right? And we can keep on refreshing the page. And this is guaranteed to be unique in our universe. I don't know.
Is there a reason why we have to put at default?
Yeah. So what if we didn't have this whole line? What would be the problem?
Then an ID wouldn't be placed, I guess.
Yeah, there'd be no field of ID. When a tweet is created initially, there'd be no ID generated. We don't want to have to think of unique IDs every time we create a tweet or our users create a tweet. But message, why doesn't message have a default?
I guess that's because that's something we're receiving from the client.
Yeah, we can't. The message we need from the client to know what to create. So that we're going to have to provide to Prisma every time. All right, so enter a name for the new migration. I just type 3 dots, honestly. If you want to make a description, you can for your migration. So now one of the coolest features of Prisma, in my opinion, is once we've migrated, we can visually look at our database by doing npx Prisma Studio. So this is a tool you get out of the box. And now we have a visual representation of our database. And this is a good mental model that you should have. Basically, we have only one table right now called tweets and 0 tweets. But here we can add some tweets, right? And what did we have yesterday? So our first tweet was add tweets to your React app. And then build a Twitter clone. And then Twitter clone with React.js. And we save these changes, and we've now created, so in the language of SQL, these are going to be called rows. Really, our JavaScript developer brains, we think of them as objects, but here we describe them as rows. And these are fields or properties, and we only have 2 right now, ID and message, right? So now, let me run our dev server again for Next.js. So now the idea is instead of hard coding these tweets, I'm going to go ahead and delete our fake library of tweets, right? So we don't need this anymore. And I'm going to find our GET request. So here's our GET request where we just had our tweets. So I'm going to delete that. And now the question is, how can I use Prisma to get the real tweets from the database? So there's one homework step we have to do first. What I like to do is create a file in lib called prisma.js. And here we have to use what's called a Prisma client. So this is going to be like the main object that from our JavaScript code communicates with Neon, with our database, right? And here's the code I'm going to copy. So we're basically initializing a new instance of the Prisma client. And we're going to use this throughout our whole app. So this is kind of homework we need to do for Prisma to be able to communicate with Neon, right?
So Max, you have right there, it has TypeScript and JavaScript. Did you just select JavaScript, or is it?
Yeah, for some reason when I do JavaScript, it does the old import, but nothing else changes.
So are we going to use TypeScript
No.
through the rest of this course?
There's actually, this is weird. There's no TypeScript in this TypeScript file. You'll notice. Yeah. I was kind of confused by that too, but yeah, we're not going to learn TypeScript in the course. So now, how can I use Prisma to get the real tweets from the database for this GET request, right? So I can do Prisma and I can auto import that, the one I just created here. And now, does anyone know what I can do to get the tweets? Who hit the pre-work hard? Jay? I bet you did. How can I use my Prisma client to get the tweets in the database?
Wait, well, I followed the tutorial. He didn't show that part. Like, he did all kinds of different things than what you're doing.
Prisma dot, does anything look promising? Yeah, Prisma dot tweet. This is why Prisma's the best. Dot, you can just keep on seeing the auto suggestions, right? Anything look good to find all tweets?
Find many.
Find many. Yeah, there we go.
Many.
And that's it. So this will return a promise, right? So we're going to use our old friend of await. And we have to use the keyword async. And then here I can just respond with these tweets. So now to hit that request again in Thunder Client, let me actually do this again. So API tweet, send a GET request. I hit it. And now I'm getting the tweets actually from the database. Questions on that?
So this is really a basic question, but in the library, I understand we used export. Is there a reason why we have to use export as opposed to export default?
Oh, no. It's just personal choice. Yeah. Yeah, if you did export default, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Max,
Yeah.
on that, if you have more than one thing in that file, like if it was a library, you couldn't just do export default, right? If there's more than one thing.
Yeah, you can do multiple exports, but only one default export.
Oh, I see. Only one
Yeah.
default. Oh.
So you could do export student. Wait, what? Oh, I forgot the const. Yeah. So this is fine. You can do as many of these as you want. But yeah, only one default. Yeah. Okay. So we did a GET request for tweets, right? Let's just jump into this post request maybe. We're right here anyway. So what needs to change to make an actual so what needs to change to use our actual database here? So line 23, what needs to change to use our actual database, do we think? Farhan?
Well, we'll definitely need to import the Prisma thing.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and do Prisma dot. Oh, sorry, we already imported Prisma at the top here.
And so it would be then Prisma dot tweets, I guess.
Yeah, dot, and which looks good to create a tweet.
Oh, create.
Yep.
Create, yeah.
And then what argument does create take?
Would it be an object of whatever we're creating?
Yeah, so look at this. On the IntelliSense, I just scroll down. Look at this beautiful example here. So it's an object with a property of data. So let me do that, right? So object, and then if you ever forget, you can press Control Spacebar, right? And I see data here. And data itself is an object. And then what does this need? And it says optionally. So the question mark means optionally, but message is required. And I have access to the message already. So this, like all Prisma calls, returns a promise. So we can await this. And we can call this tweet. And here we can just respond with the tweet that was created. That makes the most sense in a post request. So I'm modifying this slightly from yesterday. Okay. How do I test this in Thunder Client? So I made this new backend route. How do I test it with Thunder Client? Ketzerin?
Change the get to post.
Yep. Change the get to post. Exactly.
And then in the body, you can writing message on the string. Yep, message. And you can say, Prisma is great.
PetSmart is great.
No, Prisma. I just say wrong.
Prisma is great. Close enough, right? Okay, we click send. And look at that. It says success true tweet, and it generated our UUID. But now the cool thing is we can actually see this in the database. If we run Prisma Studio again. What am I doing here? Oh, what did we create? Prisma is great right here. Yeah. And now if we hit the get request again, so change this to get, we'll see our Prisma is great tweet that was created, right? So that's posting. I guess we'll just keep on going on unless there's any questions. Should we? Yeah.
Just going back to it. So the reason why we're not making an ID when we're doing posts is because Prisma is doing the work for us.
Yeah. Because of the default UUID. Yeah. So when a tweet is created, that's when this default gets initiated. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. So what other routes can we work on here? We did get, we did post.
You could do push.
There's no push. You mean put?
Yeah.
Put we didn't have yesterday, but we'll do this one. We'll do this. This is a little more interesting. So let me erase this logic. So basically, we need to get a certain tweet by ID. How can I do that using Prisma, do you think? Pimpa, any ideas here? How can we get a certain tweet using Prisma by ID?
ID?
Yeah, so we'll select tweet here for our model. And then does anything look promising to find a tweet?
File unit?
Yeah. Sometimes I have problems with find unique. It generates errors when I don't want it to. So I prefer find first usually, but it shouldn't make that big a difference. And then here we can scroll down to the example, right away. So we see, what do we see? We have an object with a property of where, which is an object. So we do where, and that's an object. And what does this need, right? So this needs an ID that we can search by. And what value is our ID that we want to search by?
Tweet
String?
ID.
Yeah, tweet ID. Yeah, right here. And we're using await, so we got to use async. And let's try to do it. So why will this fail? Sempsy, why will this fail right now?
Okay, it will fail. Well, are you not in the correct folder?
I think I'm good. The number one, is there a tweet with ID number one?
No.
Yeah.
They are automatically generated. Yes.
Yeah, so we shouldn't see
So-
anything for this request. But what happens is Prisma generated an error, I believe. It's hard to see with all this code, but I think that Prisma threw an error here because no tweet was found. So an error was generated. So what should we do to this code in that situation?
Make a try catch.
Yeah, so what we want to do is surround the code with a try catch. And here, how do I want to modify this response here?
Make it success false.
Success
then-
false, yep.
Fit the error message.
Error is,
Uh,
Error
Yeah.
dot message.
yeah, exactly. So I'm going to save this, and I think we'll get a much more reasonable response. So I click send. Oops. Oh, no. Sorry, this error is coming from here. Okay, let me click send again. This I'm going to comment out right now. Oh, so this is interesting. Prisma, if it can't find it, will return null, right? So if I move this logic to here, this will actually be nice, right? So if not null, then no tweet with that ID found. So send this now, no tweet with that ID found. So yeah, so I was incorrect, right? This doesn't generate an error if it's not found. It returns null. And we use that fact to make this logic. Questions on that?
So if you were a front-end developer, how would you be able to choose a specific tweet? And as a back-end developer, how would you create that documentation?
Well, the documentation would be how you get tweets, how you change tweets, how you delete them, how you create them. There'd be nothing about specific tweets. Because if you needed information about specific tweets, what would you do?
It would be, I guess, some sort of template literal thing that
No, you just send a GET request to the database, right?
Um,
And then you can see all the tweets right here. So now if we want this add tweets to your React app, how could we get that, Farhan? That specific tweet?
I guess we would just do the thing we did there, which is response.params. Or sorry, we would put it there, yeah, in the URL.
Yeah,
And
we can
then-
just put it here, and then we get the actual tweet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're doing so well on time. We might as well do a put request.
So question, is there
Yeah.
a way to search for an ID? Like say there was like 1,000 tweets there and we had to find one specific one. So how do you search for like the one specific ID then? If like, oh, we have to change one.
Well, this is what Prisma is doing for us. This find first, it's looking through millions of tweets, presumably. Or not presumably, but if there were millions. Right now we just have 4, but there could be millions. And it found the tweet with that ID.
No,
I
I'm
see,
saying like how can you find the ID? Like there'll be tons of IDs there, but like if you need to find
Oh, the
it-
front end is responsible. So on the front end, a user will be shown a tweet, and that'll have some unique ID, right? And they'll go to like it, and the front end request has to send the ID that they liked
So it would be like the responsibility of the front end to
Yeah.
provide it to the back. Okay.
to send that ID. Yep. Yeah, it's a weird dance between the front end and the back end. There's a lot of moving parts. And you guys will do both sides. All right, so let's do a put request to API tweets some kind of ID, right? And to change the tweet. So to update the message, because you never really update the ID, but we could presumably edit the message, right? So what has to change on this line if we are wanting to update a tweet? Ritu?
You want to change line 26 to get to put.
Yeah. How about this line, Ritu? Does anything have to change?
No, I still think we need that. We'll need to know the tweet ID.
Yeah. How about all this logic? Is this still good or not applicable?
No, I think we'll still need that.
Yeah, this logic is still good because what if they try to request to edit a tweet that doesn't exist? So no tweet with that ID found is still appropriate. But okay, so now how do we ask Prisma to edit the tweet? Oh, so let's say the user has to send us Prisma is not great, actually. They have to send us the new updated message. So how do we get that from the body? How do we extract that message from the body of the request? So this is a little review from yesterday.
So we would have to use the request parameters that we receive for free.
Yeah.
And it would be like, I think request dot message? No. JSON? Yeah. JSON, because it is a promise as well, so we need to await it.
Yeah, and then we'll destructure the message. Yeah. And now, that's all we have to do. And now, how do we ask Prisma to edit the tweet? What do you think, Vanessa? So I'll start you off, right? So Prisma dot tweet dot, which one of these sounds like editing or updating?
Update.
Yeah. So we'll choose update. And we'll look at the example right here. So we see an object with what two properties, Vanessa?
Where and data.
So let's do that. Where and data. And then what does where need, Vanessa?
The ID.
Yeah. And what is the ID?
Tweet ID.
Yep. And then data, what does data need?
The message.
Yeah. And message is message. And once again, this will return a promise. I guess I'll call this updated tweet. And for tweet, I'll put updated tweet. Okay. So now we're trying to update this tweet, whatever this tweet is, with Prisma is not great, actually. Click send. And it updated it. So all these things that would be so hard in SQL are pretty intuitive, right? Using Prisma. So it's pretty awesome. That's actually a good stopping place. So what are the final questions you guys have?
So when I was doing that tutorial
Okay.
that you had in the pre-work, when you had the table in the Prisma database and he had, the date in there, true or false, to make it valid and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But if I hit tab, it would erase it out and I couldn't put it back. So I had to restart that little step again and then just not press tab. So is that just the Prisma thing?
You press tab where?
Like if you wanted to,
Oh, this?
No, like the actual keyboard tab. When you would put in a table, like say you were putting in a user and you were putting all the information and you just had to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
In the database itself, every time I tabbed, I would go to the next line. It's kind of like a habit. You always tab to the next thing on the keyboard. And so it would just erase everything and it would just make an error and I couldn't fix it. It's
Just pressing tab here?
No,
Lindsay, are you talking about Prisma Studio?
Yeah, in the Prisma Studio database.
So in I think she's talking about the page on the right, Max.
Oh.
So, I know that there was I know that we were
here?
having
Tab?
issues.
Sorry.
Yeah, so if you added a record
Okay.
right there.
Oh, it's weird. If you don't press away and then press save, it'll delete it. So if you're like this and then
tab,
save, it'll delete it.
When I hit tab, it would erase if there was already data filled in. So how it would have the date would be already set because you would have date I guess it's a data type that would be already filled in for the table.
Oh, they might have fixed this. I know exactly what you're talking about though. Sometimes if you're typing in here and you don't click here first and then click save, it doesn't register it. It's just bad UI.
I kept deleting it or making it null. That's what it kept doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a bad UI on Prisma Studio's part. But they might have updated it because I'm not having the problem right now.
Yeah, it's just when you tab into the next.
Oh no, look, there's no SDF2. So look, if I press SDF3 and then directly save, there should be an SDF3, but there's not. So that's I saw a live stream where the people on the Prisma current team saw this bug live. So it's so weird that they didn't fix it because it seems so fixable. But anyway, that's just a bug on their part.
So just click away. Okay.
Yeah, so you got to type and then click here and then click save. Any other questions? Oh, so you guys all need to download the Prisma extension. So you need to download this because when you're using the schema, it will do all sorts of good things for you. especially when we get to relationships, which we'll do tomorrow.
Hey Max, can you go over the Neo settings again?
Yeah, so on Neon, you're just going to click Create Database. And then down here, you're just going to find Prisma. And you're going to copy the schema and the .env.
And the .env is in the root folder? Like
.env is created for you.
Okay.
And it's right here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Max, I don't know if we've covered this yet. I can't remember. But in the doc get ignore, have we already started doing the .env? Because I know that we don't push those to GitHub. Like, or is that automatically filled in for us? Or
Yeah, from Next.js, they did it for us.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, okay. So let's look at the project, right? And I need to edit it, I believe, but we'll do that right now live. So let me grab the links from Spammer. So Spammer backend. So you're creating the backend that you used last week, right? So there should be no surprises here. Here's the docs that dictate all the routes that you need to have in your backend. Obviously, this part is going to change. All of you guys will have your unique deployed app, but all these routes need to be exactly the same and exactly the same type of response. So created at, we didn't do that today, right? Likes you should be able to figure out, but created at is kind of unusual. You'll need to Google that one. Yeah. And then tomorrow we'll do relationships. So, so you shouldn't have to use my backend too often, but if you do need to, I'll include it here. Hopefully it's still working. I know it's over its usage. But really you should just be relying on your own backend. But if for some reason you want to look at mine to remember whatever, you can. But really it's just you're just looking at the docs and you're creating all those endpoints. So you don't need initially you don't need a front end at all, but by the end of the week I would like your front end to be communicating properly with your custom backend. Because right now you're using my backend in your front end for Spammer. Think of that URL, right? But by the end of the week, you're going to use your own backend. This isn't a bonus. Sorry, guys. You just have to do that this cohort. Yeah. Submit the link to the deployed server running on Netlify and a link to the GitHub repo. All right. Any questions on Spammer backend? So really the docs, you just have to like go through it one by one and hit those endpoints. Create the endpoints, right? When is this due? So what is it? December 12th. So this will be due the 18th, right? So a good amount of time. Questions on Spammer backend?
Do you have the link on Canvas for Neon? I can't remember.
Do I have the link for Neon? I'll just Google Neon database. It'll come right up. But it's neon.tech. Yeah. This is not a website. This is a server. Okay, I'll get the breakout rooms going if there's no questions.